Hello everyone, welcome to an analysis of dance where we discuss the movements and debuts of the Billboard dance charts in immaculate detail with in-depth reviews of each debut each week. And just like that, we're back to a busy week, and thankfully in this case it's a much better one. And seriously, I'm feeling some really good energy from the charts right now. I mean, multiple massive debuts across the past few weeks that have been really damn solid on Hot Dance, and Dance Pop even seeing more activity than I think anyone expected, with some stuff that's likely to surge up next week too. It was a pretty impactful week across the board. And man, this has been proving that 2025 has been improving quality-wise over the last few weeks. Not as good as 2024 for obvious reasons, but still, the quality is there, and even with the splits, I'm at least seeing some nice stuff charting. That's at least welcome for me. And while yes, on Hot Dance we still had Miles on It by Marshmello and Kane Brown at #1, right now it's actually in danger of losing that top spot, considering how weak it's likely to be in comparison to when it peaked, and with the stuff getting beneath it, yeah, this has potential to be knocked off soon and not last #1 the whole year. Glad we're not in 2019 anymore, guys. Thank God that it took this long, if anything else. And no, the competition is not the Days Notion remix by Crystal at #2, although she did see another debut this week, which allowed her to actually get some upwards momentum on streaming, even if, again, radio is not touching this at all, and that's a real shame there. But more so, No Broke Boys by Disco Lines and Tinashe at #3. And with this one, it finally hit the bubbling under. It's got great streaming, radio is likely to get on board given Tinashe is a well-established name and the song's actually really catchy, and with the momentum it's got, it's likely to hit the Hot 100 soon. Given the upwards momentum, I'm expecting this to have a chance of getting #1. I know a lot of people don't really like this remix, but I still do. I think it's great to see here, and more importantly, it makes the top spot a lot less stagnant. I'll definitely take that. Even more exciting comes in our brand new debut at #2 that I think everyone expected but didn't really expect to get this high. Victory Lap by Fred Again, Skepta and PlaqueBoyMax. Now this was a lot bigger than I think anyone expected, especially considering that the streaming worldwide for this is goddamn massive, which considering it was a midweek release, honestly that's kind of really revealing of a song that's got a ton of momentum. It debuted top 10 in several countries, and even here it's become Fred Again's highest charting song to date. Yes, even with the split it would have likely gotten here regardless, and the quality is there. I'm thrilled to see where Fred Again goes from here. And rounding out top 5 that is honestly really damn good, Blessings by Calvin Harris featuring Clementine Douglas at #5. Now radio is actually picking up this one pretty slowly, but given the lack of growth there, I don't really see it being a big radio hit, but the streaming is still good. This is holding out really well, and man, this top 5 is long overdue for a quality boost. There's so much good here, no complaints. And hell, it's comfortably stopping Paso Bem Solto by Atlas from getting any momentum at #6, even if the streaming numbers are still good on this one. Again, it got overshadowed by Blessings on that format, and given the lack of support elsewhere, yeah, this isn't surprising to me. And on the opposite end, Never Ender by Justice and Tame Impala is holding steady at #7. Radio is still fully on board with this one, and even if it's showing signs of stalling out and will probably end up being gone soon, honestly, it had a lot better of a run than I think anyone expected, and it's gaining momentum to the point where it's gotten a new peak on Hot Rock and Alternative. That's really impressive on its way. But thankfully, following this is a song that I'm quite frankly shocked to even manage to get back into the top 10 given how hard it fell out a few weeks ago. Yep, it's Assumptions by Sam Galatri at #8. And really, this is down to the wire here. A lot of great streaming numbers for this one, but the fact is, it had to be our 2 Brazilian funk songs and a song that exited the charts this week that was an established hit. And I think that's really revealing that streaming is back on board with this, and I'm absolutely not going to complain about that either. Oh, and speaking of which, the last 2 songs, yeah, they didn't really move at all. Although it's impressive that they actually stuck where they were, all for obvious reasons outside of the dropout that we'll get to. But in this case, Montegem Tormata by Mozzie is at #9, and really, I don't really see this having a ton of staying power. It's already stalling out worldwide, no complaints. And Luna Bala by YB Was Good and Aris at #10. Again, this is stalling out a bit worldwide, and even if it's a newer song and likely to gain above Montegem Tormata soon, it's just not got enough momentum on streaming to matter, thank God. But now onto the meaty story of this week, the falls and fall-offs, and holy shit, with so many debuts and a return this week, we saw some big songs. The big one is Forever Young by David Guetta, Alphaville and Ava Max, which finally exited, and considering that it was #8 last week, it lost out to 2 Brazilian funk songs and a fucking Sam Galatri song. If that's not a sign that radio was the only reason that this pile of garbage actually stuck around, out, I don't know what is. And outside of that, sadly John Summit's remix of Silence by Delirium and Sarah McLachlan just really left out of nowhere, even if it's likely going to have a chance at making the top 100 of the year-end list, which I can't complain about. And unfortunately, The Less I Know The Better by Mal P is also going to make that year-end list, although I'm not complaining about it seeing it go again. But what's more interesting is that really we only saw one notable fall this week for Save My Love by Marshmello, Ellie Goulding and Avion, already out of the top 10 down to 13. Now this one doesn't surprise me given that Marshmello's singles after Miles On It have just not performed well at all. Hell, even Slow Motion felt more radio carry than it really should have been. But with this, I mean, it's going to make the year-end list at least. I'm not exactly upset about it leaving the top 10. And honestly, good for Avion. He's had this level of success for a reason. Then that just leaves Tell You Straight by Jiggets clawing back to 25, a song that's honestly doing a lot better than I think anyone expected this late after the remix boost. And really, I'm not going to complain about it coming back. I mean, it's a good song. Speaking of things that are surprising, we get to our debuts here, and I think it's worth noting that this is the first case since the split of a song that I've already covered on a different format, charting there first before Hot Dance, because realistically a lot of songs that chart on this format are either long-standing streaming hits that don't really have much support elsewhere, or in this case with Dior by MK featuring Crystal at 20, having the sort of upwards momentum in other countries and also debuting on Dance Airplay early to the point where it finally hit the main chart proper. Let's hope it continues going up. It's a really good song still. But man, things start rough for the rest of our debuts here, unfortunately beginning with number 23, I Love You So JUMPSTYLE by HUSSVRX. I mean, it's basically what it says on the title. It's a remix of I Love You So done by a relatively unknown Polish hip-hop producer, and in this case, it's actually not the song by the Walters that blew up back in 2021 that came out in 2016, but no, it's instead some weird Eurodance song by an artist called Snuffle that came out in the late 2000s. Are we seriously doing this? Let me make this clear, this remix is bad for some pretty obvious reasons outside the fact that you really don't need to remix this sort of sugary sweet Eurodance song and turn it into this really dark jump style cut with the sort of blaring and awfully mixed percussion that sounds really unflattering to this vocal sample. I mean, I get that it's trying to replicate the darker atmosphere with something that's a lot more lighter and childlike. Again, I understand what they're going for here, and it does at least stand out on this chart. It's definitely a lot more preferable to another generic Brazilian funk song, but really when you get down to the production of this entire remix, it just sounds unflattering and awful. The sort of thing where you have these really awful synth textures and a really cheap sounding mix that, again, doesn't remotely fit a song this upbeat and cheesy in a way that, while I definitely can say that it's not really something I want to return to, it's at least more preferable and listenable than this. So yeah, just not interesting nor good. It at least stands out a little bit more than your average Brazilian funk song that charts here every week, but still, I'd like to see my JUMPSTYLE actually have some, you know, energy or good mixing, which this has neither. Number 21 is Everybody Having Fun by John Summit and Gorgon City featuring Rhys from the Sticks. So we don't care about the... This is Gorgon City's first charting song on Hot Dance in 5 years, and man, again, their presence has been dearly missed on this chart. I mean, I know that they've got sales support, and Run It Back is having a really solid run on Dance Airplay at the moment, where I can see it actually being a year-end contender at the rate it's going, but really, Gorgon City feels like the sort of act that should have been pushed way more, especially with that album that came out a few years ago that was really damn good and had some great singles to it. Seriously, why Gasoline wasn't a hit from that album, I will never understand. But the John Summit stimulus package allowed them to chart on Hot Dance again with a collaboration with an artist called Rhys from the Sticks that I had absolutely no prior knowledge of, and oh man, I wish I liked this one more. I mean, it's still good. I like those stabby sounding synths against the much more urban sounding atmosphere and some really sharp percussion that reminds me a lot of John Summit's Eat the Bass, a song that I initially was quite mixed on but has grown on me recently. I do like it now, and honestly it's got the sort of heavy bass impact that I could honestly see why it became a big sales darling. It is really solidly produced. Problem is, Rhys from the sticks here just sounds unnatural and really out of place in a way that I really did not like. He's going for that same sort of deadpan speak sing delivery that Example made popular in the early 2010s, and not only does this guy not have anywhere near the level of personality that Example does, he's also got the really bad vocal mixing that pushes his voice to the front of the mix and gets really annoying and distracts from a really nice atmosphere. And really, if he made this an instrumental, I would have liked this a lot more. I mean, production wise, it's still rock solid. Again, there's a high floor with both of these artists where I can see why people like this, but the vocals really drag it down for me. I wish I liked this more. Number 16, Wait So Long by Swedish House Mafia.
Why do I have to wait so long for your love?
God, that title was so fitting because, man, I've really been wanting Swedish House Mafia to chart here again. We've been waiting so long for it. Now, I will admit, while I do like a lot of the singles quality-wise from the post-Paradise Again era, a lot of them have felt weirdly safe and underwhelming by the standards of this group. They have the potential to make some really cool experiments as shown on Paradise Again, and with the newer singles, they've just been sticking to their brand of atmospheric house, which is good, mind you. I do like a lot of their songs quite a bit, and really, I'm just annoyed that a lot of them weren't bigger hits, but I think the lack of experimentation might hurt them long term, especially with their singles underperforming. And in this case, yeah, I expect this to happen to this song too, even despite debuting a lot higher, and that's a shame because this is a really solid song. The most notable element for this is really the vocals that are sampled by Plan B, and if any of you know Plan B by name, it's most likely through his collaboration with Chasing Status on End Credits, which is one of the greatest drum and bass songs of all time in my opinion, and an absolute staple of my playlist at the moment. And yes, while the lyrics here are a bit pushy and whiny as he complains about waiting so long for this love, Benjamin really sells it with the sort of atmosphere and really great presence to his vocals, where I get why Swedish House Mafia was fully on board with sampling this, because seriously, his vocal delivery is great here. And man, I get why this worked, because the production once again is really damn good. It's not exactly risky or anything out of the ordinary for Swedish House Mafia, going for their much more gorgeous brand of analog heavy house music. I mean, it's not really trying anything all that different for Swedish House Mafia outside of some much more shuffling percussion against the gorgeous atmosphere and those house drops that sound really crisp. And even if the drops are a little bit underwhelming in terms of groove, you could have easily pushed the kicks a little bit harder in the mix. They do feel a bit flat here. It's the sort of thing where, again, the great mixing of these artists really come together and show why this trio is one of the most beloved in the scene at the moment. I mean, I could complain about the fact that this could have gone a little bit harder or taken more risks. Again, it's proof that Swedish House Mafia are playing things a bit too safe for these post-album singles, but really, when the quality is so consistently high, I can't exactly complain too much. It's a really good song, and while I don't expect it to have much staying power, it's nice to see here. Good stuff. Number 4, Victory Lap by Fred Again, Skepta, and PlaqueBoyMax.
Now she a freak that should've never let the bitch alone with my seat moms. Not a bitch skip pit popping in my Reeboks, talking about a detox, pussy like a beatbox, all grown up bitch looking like Slayyyter, not that booty. I need that, I need that, I need that.
Man, this feels long overdue, and I don't just talk about the fact that this is one of Fred Again's biggest charting songs to date, debuting in the top 10 in multiple countries and even hitting the Canadian Hot 100, which is really big for his standards, but also the pivot back to UK rap and grime, which feels like it's been long overdue for Fred. I mean, he did this back with his collaboration album with Heady One before he really got popular, but outside of Rumble, it hasn't really been a side of Fred that's been explored as much as I would have liked. And given the success of this, it might be a sign that he might do more of these, and thank God in that case, because holy shit, this is one of his biggest bangers and one of his best songs in a long time. I mean, we expected this from Fred given that his production goes so goddamn hard here, with the intense bass against the much more shuffling grime percussion that sounds absolutely terrific against the much darker atmosphere. More so where I absolutely get why he put this on USB. It absolutely fits on that release a lot more than a lot of the other recent singles have. And when the mix allows Skepta to to absolutely breathe, where he delivers the sort of flexing and rap material that you'd expect from him, with some really hilarious references to movies like Black Swan that were goddamn inspired, especially when you contrast that with American Psycho and George Foreman in some really well executed ways, where his flow is goddamn terrific across the verses. I get why Fred brought him on board, and again, his resurgence in popularity has been welcome. His collaboration with Sammy Virgie is also worth checking out if you haven't heard it already. But what I think really surprised me was the sampling of Doechii and Rico Nasty's collab Swamp Bitches for the hook, where they make this song that was originally a lot more dark and a lot less energetic into the sort of thing where the double time flow on the hook sounds goddamn satisfying as all hell, pitch shifting Doechii up to make her voice a lot more menacing in the mix, and really creating the sort of atmosphere and groove to the track that I really am surprised that Fred again has not done as much of recently. It's also really goddamn catchy, which also explains why it's become such a big hit around the world, and with the likelihood of this sticking around long term given that it's not exactly falling anywhere anytime soon, yeah, that's absolutely brilliant for this chart, and given the high quality of this track, I am absolutely thrilled to see where this goes. And it's a goddamn terrific track. Let's see this stick around and make the year-end list. I would absolutely not complain there. Off that, wow, dance pop had actual activity for the second week in a row, and it wasn't limited to a single source this time, thank God. Yes, Abracadabra by Lady Gaga is at #1, but with the radio rotating it out and streaming not being all that good, expect this to be on its last week at #1 this week, and with the stuff that's getting beneath it, I expect a lot to knock it down next week. No complaints there. But really, outside of Illegal by Pink Panther is continuing to jump up to #6, where I can see this hitting the bubbling under soon, which is absolutely welcome. We didn't really see a lot else, so let's just get into those big debuts. Unfortunately, starting with #13, Airplane Mode by Limbo.
Find something to do, I know I can be a little bit cold, but my third eye is going blind. I'm unaligned with my body and mind, it's playing tricks. I say I'm fine, but really it's hurting me deep inside.
I shouldn't even be shocked that something like this is actually charting. I mean, we had a similar instance of this brand of PC music leaning cute pop music mixed with Gacha Life with Love For You by Lovely Laurie back at the beginning of the splits, but this, yeah, I shouldn't be surprised that this is charting at all. For context, Limbo is a masked female singer who both sings and produces her own music, with nothing else of notes from her outside of this one track that's blown up on TikTok and was released in 2018. It's only charting now. And after hearing this, wow, I totally get why it took so long, because this is fucking terrible. I mean, I can acknowledge when something just isn't for me, and yeah, this absolutely is not for me at all, but even by the low standards I hold this scene, you can do so much better than this. It sounds like it was made in 10 minutes. Cheap sounding synth pad that doesn't goddamn change at all across 2.5 minutes, the awfully mixed percussion on the back end that has no groove or low end to speak of, the atrocious backing harmony that sound borderline off-key and amateurish in a really unflattering way. And to top it all off, Limbo herself, where the vocal mixing is so goddamn lazy and amateurish that it sounds like she's falling off beat, with the sort of flat and absolutely lifeless singing that you'd expect from someone with very little budget, and in this case, with some of the most basic and bland lyrics I've ever seen, with rhyming that a goddamn 2-year-old would be able to figure out. And when you read the lyrics about the most generic yearning for love imaginable, where it's trying to go for more of that theater kid aesthetic, yeah, it's so sickly sweet and uncanny to the point where I find myself getting nauseous whenever I hear this. It's the sort of track that's goddamn insufferable, and proof that a lot of the TikTok hits, they're not exactly something that most people would listen to out of context, because seriously, what is the appeal of this? And when you combine that with some of the worst production I've heard on this chart or any sort of dance related chart in recent memory, yeah, this is fucking terrible. Probably a reason why it took so long to chart anywhere despite the large amount of streams it has, mostly because it's absolute crap. And again, I know I'm from a different generation that grew up with a lot more angsty and darker sounding emo tracks than this, but seriously, this is pathetic. I really did not like this at all. Easy skip for me, this sucks. #7, Takedown by HUNTR, EJAE, Audrey, Nuna, and Rayami.
But you can't hide, baby, nice try. I'm about to switch up these vibes. I finally opened my eyes. It's time to kick you straight back into the night.
okay, we are actually getting into something that's a lot less insufferable for me, although in this case, K-pop music can get there. I'm not exactly gonna let this off the hook if the song sucks, but really, in this case, I'll at least take it over that abomination, considering that this is a song that's related to that new K-pop Demon Hunters movie that's just came out, with a sort of viral traffic for a lot of the soundtrack, where I expect this and the other song that debuted this week to get really big momentum. Expect one of these to go to #1 next week. That's how big the soundtrack is right now. And honestly, given it's a movie from Sony in their best era for animation at the moment, I'm actually kind of curious at seeing the movie. It might actually be really good, especially considering the positive reception has been really reassuring. And with these two songs debuting this week being the only cases of the album actually impacting dance pop, we had this, and I didn't really like this as much as I'd hoped. I mean, it's fine. I like that all the singers have their own distinct presence here, and they have the sort of personality and bite to their delivery where I could absolutely see why the soundtrack has blown up as much as it has. HUNTR as a group, even despite the name itself being fictional, has some members that have some great chemistry. You'd honestly think they're in an actual group together, but really, I think this song just really suffers from a lot of the same issues that a lot of K-pop in the mid-2010s had, where it's just overproduced and compressed to so many levels to the point where it becomes unflattering for the girls' vocals at all. And really in this case, the song just blends into the soundtrack immensely for me, which, considering that there's a reference to Billie Jean by Michael Jackson on one of the refrains, it's not exactly the sort of thing that really should blend in as much as it does. I mean, it probably works better in the context of the movie, especially with the lyrics talking about the surface level attraction that HUNTR have towards the Saja boys, despite the fact that that group is demonic and the sort of villains that you want to get rid of in the film. But really, outside of the context of the film, I don't see myself listening to this one all that much. I mean, it's perfectly fine, honestly pretty solid if you can get past the influences, but really, there are better songs on this soundtrack, like #3, How It's Done by HUNTR, EJAE, Audrey, Nuna, and rhys.
Better sit down for the show, 'cause I'm gonna show you how it's done, done, done.
Now, this was a lot less surprising that it debuted this high, considering that it's basically the introduction to HUNTR as a group, with all the members getting equal time to showcase their ability to work as Demon Hunters, even despite, again, that surface level attraction to Saja boys most likely getting in the way of their goals, against a much heavier trap knock that has a lot more personality and groove to it, even if the repetitive dun-dun-duns on the hook do get a little bit obnoxious. And honestly, I like this one a lot more. It's got a lot more low-end groove and menace to it, and the lyrics are well framed in a way to make the usage of weapons feel just as natural as anything else that a lot of younger women out of Korea actually would like normally. It's really well framed and honestly quite entertaining in a way. And man, those cinematic touches around the mix really do make this feel a lot bigger and a lot more impactful for me. Honestly, in the context of the movie, it might work even better considering it's an introductory track. It really does establish these girls' presence in the film and in the best way possible. So yeah, the hook and flow are really solid, the song's really catchy. Honestly expect this to go to #1 next week. It's got a lot of upwards momentum on streaming. And yeah, I can't complain. It's a really good song. Honestly, I might have to see the movie at some point. I really like where the soundtrack is going, and I've heard some of the other tracks and I really enjoy them. And really, given the quality of this, I think I'm in for a good time with that film. Just saying, this is really good. But as a result of so many big songs debuting this week, yep, we had some impact even on dance streaming and dance sales, thank God. Hell, that starts with Just Keep Watching by Tate McRae being #1 on dance streaming. And given that really that's the only format that's embracing it at the moment, and it's likely to gain even more with the F1 album's impact next week, really, you could push this to radio. I have no idea why you're pushing Revolving Door there, especially when it fell to #6 this week. It's not exactly doing well on streaming anymore. But outside of that, Abracadabra by Lady Gaga is just plummeting down to #7 after a really respectable run, leaving the big stories to be a lot of the positive movements here. I mean, the big one is No Broke Boys by Disco Lines and Tinashe surging up to #9. Again, it's the biggest streaming gainer this week. If that's not a sign this has momentum and will likely end up being the #1 moving forward, chord, I'm not exactly sure what is. And then there's the return of Illegal by PinkPantheress to 14, where it looks like this has gained a lot of viral momentum on TikTok to the point where this could actually hit the bubbling under next week. And given how much the track has really grown on me recently, yeah, I can't complain about seeing this become a hit. It would be great to see PinkPantheress chart the Hot 100 again and break her one-hit wonder status. This is really cool. And hell, on that note, the debuts here are both songs that were honestly not surprising to see here. How It's Done by HUNTR from KPop Demon Hunters debuted at number 2, which is really revealing. And even Victory Lap by Fred Again, Skepta and PlaqueBoyMax is at 15. This has a lot of upwards momentum to it. The fact that Fred Again was able to debut on dance streaming, especially with strong recurrent tracks, that's really revealing and really welcome for me. But for dance sales, holy shit, this was chaos. I mean, as expected, Feels So Good to Be You by Mama Duke hit number 1. Again, second week sales will do that. I don't expect it to hit number 1 next week. But outside of that, Like I Like It by Mal P fell hard to 12, and even Dancing Queen by ABBA hit 14. With the positive movement showing Blessings by Calvin Harris featuring Clementine Douglas rebounding nicely to number 9. But then that leaves the debuts, where a lot of them are songs that I've actually covered already, and really that makes this a lot more manageable for me. Is Everybody Having Fun by John Summit and Gorgon City featuring Rhys from the Sticks at 13. Victory Lap by Fred Again, PlaqueBoyMax and Skepta at number 7. And from HUNTR we had How It's Done at number 2 and Takedown at number 8. I mean, these are all really solid songs at worst. I'm not exactly complaining about them being here. Just gonna say that. But that leaves 2 debuts here, which both are just weird. Starting off with number 15, Attention by Kesha, Slayyyter and Rose Gray.
Rich, drive like an asshole, dress like a bitch. I want a billionaire, but I'm already rich. Do I have your attention?
Everything about the rollouts of Period has just been absolutely goddamn baffling to me. You push Joyride to the lead single, it does much better than I think anyone expected as a pretty liked song, but afterwards you drop a load of garbage that just has absolutely no mainstream appeal at all, and really shows that this album might end up being a much worse underperformance than I think anyone expected. And to top it all off, you push this song that's not even on the standard edition of the album, being relegated to the deluxe edition. Seriously, you don't do that before an album releases. You at least make the deluxe edition a bit more accessible, and really don't push one of the singles from it if you're not confident with it being on the main album. This is meant to be a rollout, not a free single push for something that's not going to stick around or be memorable. But really, this is the sort of baffling move that does not enforce any sort of staying power in her at all, which is a real shame. I like to see her come back. And that's even more frustrating because this might be the most I've liked any single from this era of Kesha. This is actually rock solid. Part of that is the production that thankfully doesn't feel completely blown out or obnoxious like a lot of the singles. Going for this faster brand of speedier house with the stabby acidic bass stems against a much heavier groove that builds into a really goddamn catchy hook where Kesha starts wailing in a way that's honestly quite cool. I really enjoyed her vocal tone here. And even the verses from Slayyyter and Rose Gray are really well executed and feel very cohesive within the track. All 3 women feel like they're coming together for the sort of flexing and absolutely awesome self-love that's been well overdue for Kesha at least. Playing into the trashy party vibes that made for some of Kesha's best tracks in her peak, and really, it's really cool to see her go back to this lane but with a lot more self-confidence. If anything, this just makes me baffled why it's not on the standard edition of the album. It's a lot more grounded and a lot more focused on the sort of stuff that you'd expect from a Kesha comeback album, and considering some of the other singles have just been utterly awfully executed, having something like this be so good and yet be only knocked to the deluxe edition, yeah, that's not excusable at all. And yeah, I can't complain about this debuting here. It's gonna underperform absolutely as you'd expect, but compared to the other singles, I would absolutely take this. This is perfectly solid. Number 10, Cash Out by SIDEPIECE and Bobby Shmurda.
Shorty give me neck till I pass out. I swear to God, all I do is cash out. And if you ain't a hoe, get up off my tripod.
Okay, what the hell even is this? I get that a lot of rappers that were popular back in the mid-2010s have been starting to collaborate with house producers recently, but seriously, Bobby Shmurda was locked up until 2021 and only came back into mainstream popularity thanks to a 6ix9ine track. Seriously, what the hell is he doing here? I mean, I get that he's worked with Loud Luxury before, back in 2024 with that awful track Cool Like That, but seriously, this feels baffling to me, especially considering SIDEPIECE have not had a mainstream hit in a long time, and with this, honestly, I actually like this a lot more than I expected. Yes, it's blatantly generic flexing where he talks about getting necked so much he passes out before cashing in checks, as you'd expect from a lot of rap artists at this point. But Bobby Shmurda actually sounds a lot more invested than I think anyone expected, and more importantly, this production is on point. This goes really hard. The minimal synth flourishes over the much heavier tech house beat with a lot more focus on the bass frequencies on the drop that absolutely go off and have some really great grooves to them. Honestly, it's the sort of thing that matches Bobby Shmurda's energy really effectively, and honestly, off this alone, I'd be curious to see where he goes moving forward with these sort of much more energetic and darker house cuts. He's got the sort of voice that could really work for songs like this. Honestly, in terms of the sound alone, it kind of reminds me a lot of HUNTR's remix of Stephanie by Clooney, which, considering that remix considerably improves the original track, yeah, that's an absolute win for me. I would like to hear more songs like this. I mean, in terms of the sorts of no-nonsense tech house that you'd expect to charts on this chart for a few weeks, this kind of nails it. I'm honestly impressed by this. I would not mind this sticking around. Really good song. And finally, honestly a pretty manageable week for dance airplay. It wasn't super busy, and considering this week, I would take a little bit of a calmer end to everything here. And of course, that's probably helped by our number one being Never Forget You by Afrojack, a perfectly solid dance airplay filler track that really is doing a lot better than I think anyone expected, to the point where this is actually Afrojack's second number one on dance airplay ever, which, considering how many hits he's had and how long he's been around, that's really surprising to me. I mean, good for him, I guess. The song's not bad. I mean, it comfortably knocked down Come With Me by Major League DJs and Georgia Smith down to number 2, which, considering that the spins are falling a lot faster on this one, expected to fall past some other songs that are falling over the next couple of weeks. That's at least a little bit revealing in a way, even if the song's made the year-end list already. It probably won't be held by the big gains for Blessings by Calvin Harris featuring Clementine Douglas at number 3. And this one I expect to have a slow rise to the top, and considering how much of an easy radio hit it can be, expect this to have a big run and potentially make the top 10 of the year-end list at the rate it's going. It's doing really well. Although it's actually surprisingly not the song that I expect to go to number 1 next week. Nope, that's Surrender by Alesso and Becky Hill at number 4, where the spins gained big on this one, and just as of recording this, it hit number 1 on Mediabase. It's gonna hit number 1 on the main chart next week, and that's a huge win, especially for Becky Hill at this point. Then there's Don't Wake Me Up by James Hyde falling to number 5. Again, this fall is a lot slower than I think anyone expected. It's actually doing a lot better than I would have thought, even for a song that I called being a number 1 hit when it debuted, and really I can't complain about that. The song's great, but likely it's gonna get knocked down at least a little bit by Won't Be Possible by Tiesto, Odd Mob, and Good Boys at number 6. It's gaining big momentum, and given how early it debuted, expect this to continue up pretty consistently. It's gonna do really well, and man, Odd Mob has been overdue a hit like this. But what's a little worrying came in the early fall of Edge of the World by Medusa, Inalia, and Genesee featuring Nula down to number 7. Not exactly a great week for Nula overall, as we'll get to later on, and with this being a blatant retread of Another World, honestly it doesn't surprise me that much that it's not performing as well as people expected. I mean, it's gonna be a pretty considerable hit, but considering Medusa standards, I expected this to do at least a little bit better. Probably not gonna be helped much by the new arrivals to the top 10 that I expect to be absolutely big, starting with In My Arms by Elenium and Hayla up to number 8. And considering Elenium's momentum recently, it's not exactly surprising that this is in the top 10 so quickly, but I guess Hayla's got the sort of momentum where this can absolutely be a contender for number 1 moving forward. Geez, really keeping that top 10 streak of hers intact with some great music, I can't complain. But moving past Wrap Yourself Yourself Around Me by DOD featuring North at number 9, which again is not falling all that hard. It's having a remarkably good run and is 16 weeks in and still in the top 10 for a number 1 peak, which is really impressive. Yet we reach our second top 10 arrival that kind of surprised me. All I Know by Rudimental and Khalid at number 10. I mean, it's likely to gain a little bit of momentum next week, but given how much it stalled out at one point, I'm not expecting this to have a top 5 run. But it'd be really cool if it did. It's nice to see Rudimental's drum and bass side actually be represented on this chart properly, and it might be a sign that more's to come from them. I can't complain about that. But what I think is really revealing is when we get to our Falloffs, outside of the amusing flop of Beer and Baddies by Coldwell featuring Sexy Red, which went from its peak to completely off media base this week, which is kind of revealing in a way. We had the expected exit of Messy by Lola Young and, well, Messy by Lazewo, which in the latter case is actually one of the highest dropouts in the history of this chart, falling out from number 17 last week. Holy shit, it's really revealing as soon as Pop Airplay throws out the original track, Dance Airplay decides to throw out the really bad remix. That's kind of revealing in a way. But our falls, okay, they're literally all songs that are likely to easily make the year-end list at this point. Outside of Wrap Yourself Around Me in the top 10, we had a minor fall for Dreaming by Dom Dollar featuring Day to 13, then the absolutely baffling Survival of I Follow Rivers by Tiesto featuring Oaks at 25, In My Head by Griffin, Cascade and New Luck, surprisingly underperforming for a Cascade song down to 35, and thankfully Don't Say a Thing by The Hotel Lobby utterly collapsing to 36. Maybe it's telling sign that this particular act should not get any more mainstream attention, especially from dance airplay stations, and when the music's this disposable and forgettable, it's really revealing how fast it's got rotated out. I'm just gonna say that. But those big falls are important to note because, wow, a lot of gains this week were in the bottom half of the charts, with the only exception being Save My Love by Marshmello, Ellie Goulding and Avion at 18, which is going to be a smash hit. No complaints there. But honestly, the quality here has been really goddamn solid. I'm not exactly going to complain, especially when the weakest tracks are the generally fine Ordinary by Alex Warren at 34, and the utterly forgettable tedious dud that is Risk It All by CMCS and Terra Jr. at 30, which I don't expect that last one to have any staying power anyway, so I'm not exactly that annoyed by it. But man, I can't complain about the long overdue actual boost for Dream a Little Dream by Armin van Buuren and Sam Gray at 32, and Nostalgia by Sammy Virgie and Izzy Cross at 31, followed by a really welcome revival for Run It Back by Gorgon City featuring Carolyn Byrne at 27, and even Dior by MK featuring Crystal off the debut to 22. That's an absolutely promising sign for a song that I expect to be absolutely huge on this format. No complaints about any of these getting momentum. These are all great songs. And we also had a debut that really wasn't surprising here as a song that I covered a few weeks ago, No Broke Boys by Disco Lions and Tinashe at 37. And if this is not a sign that radio can actually get on board with a song like this, I don't know what is. Let's push it to mainstream radio and see this actually become a hit on the main Hot 100. I would not exactly complain about that, even if I have seen a lot more backlash towards this song than I expected. Yeah, I'm still not on that side. Yeah, I really like it. But where things get weird come in our other two debuts, where we have to start off with number 40, Man Child by Sabrina Carpenter.
Why you always come running on me? Fuck my life. Won't you let an innocent woman be?
I'm gonna try my best to not really talk about the controversy around this track or the accompanying album artwork. It's just goddamn stupid. And at this point, Mark from Spectrum Pulse has really talked about this in his review of Man Child on Billboard Breakdown, where I pretty much agreed with the idea that Sabrina Carpenter can basically do what she wants at this point. And it's not exactly surprising that this sort of thing happened. I mean, seriously, have you listened to some of the tracks on Short and Sweet? Especially the track Juno, which is outright dirty and really sexually driven. This isn't exactly unfamiliar territory for Sabrina Carpenter, and she's self-aware enough to not make it sound that stupid. Come on now, she's not dumb. But yeah, I just went into this expecting this to just be a sort of silly pop song taking down an immature partner, and in this case, yeah, that's exactly what this is. With the sort of cheaper sounding production that admittedly does sound a bit too fake for my liking and really does drag down the song to merely just decent. But otherwise, yeah, I got exactly what I expected in the lyrics here, and there's a lot that I really liked as well. It's the sort of track where she's taking down her immature excuse of a partner who's just being incredibly emotionally dependent and reliant on her, to the point where the takedown on the hook is really revealing, and at the point now where she's self-aware of the fact that, yeah, she is part of the problem by enabling this guy's behavior, but really has a nice wink to the audience that shows that she's got one of the biggest personalities in the scene right now. I mean, by the bridge, she's just sarcastically acknowledging her role in this whole endeavor and really enforcing the fact that, yes, she does have a lot to work on in terms of getting these partners to actually be good for her. But again, the sort of self-aware framing that Sabrina Carpenter just nails really well. And when you combine that with a lot more upbeat groove and a hook that's really goddamn catchy, I get why this debuted so high. And while I don't expect it to have much staying power on this chart, considering it's kind of falling pretty fast on the main Hot 100, honestly, I'm on the side of actually thinking this is pretty decent. It's fine. And finally, number 20, A Better World by David Guetta and Cedric Gervais. This feels a bit longer overdue, and I'm not just talking about the fact that David Guetta is working with Cedric Gervais, although given the ugly baggage around his political views and the fact that he's been accused of stealing from smaller artists, that's an interesting and really revealing collab, and not exactly for the better either. But no, it was more so David Guetta going back to French House for the first time in years, and thank God that he's doing that, because seriously, his material this past year has been utterly awful to me. I mean, after the atrocious past few years that Guetta has had, I wanted him to come back to something that was a little bit more grounded here, and with this getting a lot more positive reception than I think anyone expected, I was curious, and this might be the most that I've liked a David Guetta song since the early 2010s. Seriously, this is surprisingly excellent. I mean, it's pretty obvious why this works for me. It's a brand of French house that's got a lot more disco house leading elements with a fantastic bass line that sounds really remarkably well mixed against the vocals which are sampled from Jackie Moore with the song If back in 1973, and for this sort of upbeat groovy dance track that has the sort of optimistic vibes in the lyrics where it talks about the sort of change in the world that could come and really affect things positively for a better world. Yeah, this is fucking phenomenal production. I was honestly really impressed from first listen, and it gets better the more I hear it. I mean, it's a little bit easy to say that this could be a corporate move to appeal to the summer radio stations. Again, I get why it's not performing as well on streaming as I think most people expect, especially after David Guetta's awful year. But seriously, this is surprisingly solid, and given the quality of this might be the best song that Guetta's released in the last decade. So yeah, genuinely great. I would like to see this stick around. This is really goddamn effective. Good job, Guetta. I'm really impressed here. And somehow against all odds, I'm giving David Guetta a tie for Best of the Week with Victory Lap by Fred against Skepta and PlaqueBoyMax. Oh my god, I can't believe this is even happening. But the song is goddamn terrific. Yeah, I really can't decide which one I like more. That's shocking to me. For Honourable runner-up though, I'm even more shocked because it's going to Cash Out by SIDEPIECE and Bobby Shmurda. Yeah, seriously, I really like that track a lot. I'm shocked how much it worked for me. For the worst, I mean, obviously it's going to Airplane Mode by Limbo. That track is unlistenable garbage and I hope it goes away soon. But Dishonourable runner-up was pretty close with I Love You So JUMPSTYLE by HUSSVRX. Really am not impressed with this one, and I hope this one goes from Hot Dance too. Although given the novelty of the track it's sampling, yeah, I don't really see this going away anytime soon, and that's a real disappointment. Next week, well, the race for #1 continues as more songs will surge up dance pop to hit that top spot, and it really could be interesting. I'm really not going to complain about more happening there. Just saying, at least Hot Dance could hopefully follow suit next week, but there's no real big releases to tell there. But yeah, that's all for this episode of an analysis of dance. See you next time.